Alright, so this is a little late because I had my blood taken and I survived it. So yeah, good for me. I realized that it's not going to be a nano vlog today because today is the 30th, which means we have a lovely talk about my OCs. The OCs we're going to be talking about today are the Northern Kingdom fairies. And if you don't know anything about the Evil Fairy RP, we have a whole playlist of all our videos talking about them. I highly recommend watching our video about the East Kingdom first, and then like the West Kingdom. Those are kind of like your prerequisites for knowing what the heck is going on here. I don't have much to talk about for Nano anyways, so there we go. So the Northern Kingdom in the Fairy RP has been mentioned before. They are the evils. They are the true evils of the fairy world. They are meanie beans. They are bad bean sprouts. As mentioned before, there's like this magic in the Evil Fairy Kingdom RP known as fairymancy, which is kind of the lack of magic, right? It's a power that Edwin has, Edwin being one of the main human characters, and it gives him the power to take away magic from things. However, there is another magic that I think we've mentioned before called Ichor, and Ichor is a very dense form of magic. It's basically the exact opposite of fairymancy, where like fairies kind of like are somewhere in the middle with magic. They've got like a good amount, not a crazy amount of magic at all. So the big thing about the Northern Kingdom is that they have come into contact with Ichor, and it has like corrupted this kingdom tons. I don't have a picture of what's going on the screen, so I'm gonna have a problem telling you who is who. However, okay, let's start with Blackthorne. So Blackthorne's the old man in this. He's got the big beard, I think. Let's just talk about him first, right? Because why not? Like, he's kind of the start of our story here. So Blackthorne used to be the old king of the Northern Kingdom. He was one of the... I think he was the person that discovered the source of Ichor that ended up corrupting everything. So that, or like the king before him. I think it was Blackthorne. But they found this spring of Ichor, and he was like, wow, this stuff is pretty heckin' dang powerful. So he tried to harness it for himself, and it ended up corrupting him. And as king, he is the most powerful in the land, and it just made him a super evil, terrible king. And what eventually happened with King Blackthorne was that it became too much for him. He kind of had a moment where he looked at himself in the mirror or whatever and was like, wow, I have become super evil and I don't like this and I need to back out of things. And so he ended up doing so to step away from the Ichor and get away from it, because it messes with your mind a whole bunch. And he was like, this is too much, I'm gonna stay back. So he stepped down from the throne, and he gave the throne to the now Queen Umbra. She's the one in the furthest back of the picture, I think. She's the queen, I guess. So Queen Umbra was like a fairy lady. She was born of the darkest shadows or something, I guess. She's a meanie bean. She wasn't always a super meanie bean, but like she's always been a bit strict and cold. And so she became the queen of the Northern Kingdom after Blackthorne stepped down. And she has heard his advice. He became a lord in her court, as seen by the fact that she is in this picture here. He's in this picture here with her. But yeah, so he became a lord in her court, and he's been kind of an advisor to her, especially in the very beginnings of things. And she used to listen to him a lot, and he warned her to stay away from the Ichor, that it was dangerous. However, she didn't heed his warning all that well. She slowly became very corrupted by the Ichor herself, and it led to some pretty bad things, because she's always been a bit of a a butthead, I guess. But yeah, she didn't heed his warning because she kind of wanted to fight with the other kingdom back in the day, the Eastern Kingdom, back when Queen Saffron was queen. I think Ursula's mentioned this before, but Queen Umbra had like a big crush on Queen Saffron for like the longest time, and she thought she was pretty swell, and then Queen Saffron ended up marrying the king, the king of the East. I don't think he's been named at any point in this RP, but she married him. I think part of it was like once he died, they lost his name. He kind of just disappeared from existence or something. I don't know, some sort of fairy magic thing. But either way, the king is gone, and that broke Saffron's heart. And yeah, that's a whole other thing. Why am I getting into it? Either way, Umbra really liked Queen Saffron. Saffron married a dude, and Queen Umbra got pretty dang mad. And I think this all happened before she became queen. So when she did become queen of the North, I think she used to be just a lady in the court before then, but when Blackthorne stepped down and she took his place, she was really mad, and she's cursed the entire Northern Kingdom so that any lady who steps in it is turned to a monster. And yeah, she was very grumpy, and she's very grumpy. I'm just going to keep saying that. But yeah, any lady who steps into the Kingdom of the North is turned into a monster because she's really mad at one lady in her life, so she's going to take it out on all the ladies. During her reign, I believe Saffron was also reigning over her kingdom, and they got into many fights. What ended up happening with Saffron was that she came in contact with a fairymancer, and this fairymancer was able to give her a lot of power, and she was able to make a very large kingdom before her eventual fall, before she got too involved in fairymancy, and it ended up wiping out the entire Eastern Fairy Kingdom, which eventually became Caelim's kingdom, and then eventually got turned back to the east. That's another thing. Anyways, yeah, so what ended up happening was they warred a lot, because, and with her fairymancy, she was able to, with Saffron's fairymancy, she was able to, like, ward off the north, but Umbra got very mad about, the fact that Saffron has this magical, huge power, and Umbra has a huge, amazing power too, but Blackthorne doesn't want her to use it. Well, then she started to get really into Icor because she was like, screw this, I'm going to use my super powerful magic weapon if Saffron's going to, and, fights ensued. And eventually Saffron, also using her power too much, ended up, I believe the king of the East, Saffron's husband, eventually was like, I'm going to use all of my power too, and he tried to take the Eye of Fairymancy from his Fairymancer, and that ended up destroying the kingdom. That's what ended up happening. Either way, that's in the past, and now Queen Umbra has taken over, like, everything. She has the entire north. The other kingdoms are like a third of her size. Like, she's 3 times as large as any other kingdom. And she has a plan to kind of just take over everything because she is hot shit, and she also is grumpy, and she's grumpy. So that's her plan, to take over everything. And the way that she's going to do this is through is through her Icor. And that leads into our friend Obsidian here. Obsidian is one of the characters being drawn. I think he's the one beside Queen Umbra. He's the rock of the court, because we have like Amethyst and Emerald's like a sciencey guy, and Amethyst is not a sciencey guy, which is confusing because Obsidian is also a sciencey, mad scientist type potion making guy. And what happens with Obsidian is he is tasked with studying Icor and using it for their advantage. And Obsidian, who has always been kind of a cold, nerdy, like, doesn't care about people's feelings, just wants to, like, figure out how things work. He's always been kind of evil, but he becomes even more evil as Icor starts to set in and starts, like, infecting his mind. And he ends up being able to do some really horrible things by fairy standards. Some of his experiments include delording, which has been mentioned before in the Western Fairy Kingdom discussion, but it's the power to take away lordship from a fairy and revert them to whatever state they were before. And sometimes these states are not that powerful at all. They aren't even fairies. Like, sometimes a fairy is formed from, like, just a flower, and it turns them back into a flower. Or in Amethyst's case, he's turned back into a literal amethyst. Wolf, when he's delorded, he turns back into a wolf, and it goes on. They eventually kidnap everyone and delord them. It's crazy. But he also has the ability to break apart a fairy's marriage, and that is also something he does. Also something that is very frowned upon, because when fairies marry, their hearts become intertwined, and ripping them apart has some bad consequences. It does not go perfect. But his main focus right now is creating a dragon. And we all know what a dragon is, but in this world, dragons are like legendary creatures. They don't really exist. There's like huge, like evil, like demons and things, and they exist just fine. And it's like, oh yes, of course they exist. I wouldn't want to mess with them, but they exist. Dragons are like legendary. Like, humans also have heard of dragons, and they're like, this is bad news. Fairies have heard of dragons. They're like, this is really bad news. I don't want to mess with the dragon. That is like a creature of old. Do not mess with that. But Obsidian is going to mess with that. He wants to create a dragon, and he's found out that the way to do it is to take the power of a unicorn's horn and corrupt it with Icor, and then he will be able to create a dragon, and that dragon will destroy everything, I imagine. Umbra's hope is to, like, control the dragon and be some sort of dragon queen, like you do. Either way, he's making a dragon out of Eve. Eve being Cordelia's girlfriend, one of the human characters. When they find out that Eve is a unicorn, is because her horn is taken away that she didn't even know she had. But the horn is stolen, and it is being inverted and turned into a dragon. So that's the thing that's happening. That is Obsidian. He's a bad boy. He used to be nicer and sweeter, but now even people in his own court are very much afraid of him. Blackthorne especially, who is really against this Icor stuff and really wants to put an end to it all, is really considering just executing Obsidian and putting an end to things, but that's pretty difficult because everyone's under a very tight watch. The next two we will discuss are Lord Hemlock and Lord Thistle. And so let's start with Thistle. He's the guy with the pointy frickin' hair who is not the girl in the bottom corner. So Lord Thistle, he's got a real stick up his bum. Like, he is a stickler for the rules. He is sniveling. He likes to do everything that Queen Umbra tells him, and he's also pretty afraid of her. And he's just a brown noser. He likes to people please royals, and he is young and he's kind of a grump, and I like him. He's kind of cute eventually. He's pretty sour because he wants to, like, get married one day, but there's no women in the court, and he likes ladies, and it's just not a good time for him. So him and Hemlock fight. Anytime they get out of the Northern Kingdom, they, like, flirt with all the ladies, and they're not interested. And he often, like, dreams of, like, marrying the queen. Doesn't work out for him. The other character is Lord Hemlock, but again, so there's a story here. Lord Hemlock is actually Lady Hemlock, who is in the bottom corner. Okay, so what ended up happening is once everyone is kidnapped from the different kingdoms, Ambrosia is also kidnapped, and Ambrosia gets divorced, which is the painful process of ripping two hearts apart. So Obsidian takes out her heart and attaches it from her husband. It's very terrible, and Hemlock, who is Lord Hemlock at the time, is watching this, and he's like, oh my lord, this is a bad idea. Like, why are you hurting poor, like, Ambrosia? Because he likes Ambrosia. He likes all the other fairies. And, you know, it sucks seeing all of this. However, what ends up happening is Obsidian forces him to marry Lady Ambrosia. And he does this because he wants to see what happens when a divorced heart is remarried. Hemlock, who's kind of like... he's like a younger fairy, and he is very scared of Obsidian, just kind of goes with it because he's scared, and he's like, what else is Obsidian going to do if I say no? So he takes his ring and exchanges it with Ambrosia's old wedding band, which fell off. His ring has Amethyst on it because, like, he saved Amethyst and gave him a voice back. Anyways, so they exchange rings and they're married. And Obsidian takes out Lord Hemlock's heart, and he discovers that Lord Hemlock's heart is the heart of a maiden, and this is a fact that Hemlock has been hiding ever since, well, like, I guess Lady Hemlock has been hiding ever since she was born as a lord. Like, she was a hemlock plant that was the most poisonous in the Northern Kingdom, and she poisons someone. I forget what happens exactly. But because she is a lady, she is going to turn into a monster. So not exactly known to her. Like, she didn't kind of realize this until she sees her heart for the first time. But she used magic to protect herself and hid the fact that she was a lady and not a lord. And she sees her heart for the first time, and she's like, oh damn, I was kind of remembering this. I was kind of afraid that my heart would betray me, and it totally did. So yeah, she turns out to be Lady Hemlock. What ends up happening with that is Thistle, who has really been doubting things that are going on. He's very upset about the entire, like, destruction of the world thing. He's usually on board with the queen, but she's kind of scary right now, and Obsidian's kind of scary too. And also, he has, like, he's like best friends with, he was best friends with Lord Hemlock before then, and he, they had fun together, and he wouldn't want his friend hurt, and realizing that he's a lady is also a shock to Thistle. And poor Hemlock is in a lot of pain because the marriage thing isn't going well. So as Thistle takes a stand, and he runs off with Lady Hemlock, and together they escape the north so that Hemlock isn't turned into a monster. Yeah, I really like Thistle and Hemlock. Like, I liked them before. They were always doing, like, really good sparring with each other. They were always mean. they were always in little, like, fights. So what happens is, like, Thistle has to adjust to the fact that his friend is actually a lady of the court, and, like, they run into Azalea and Queen Rat, who are... Okay, Queen Rat actually, like, Princess Sarah actually turns into the queen of the Eastern Kingdom, so everyone actually has to listen to her all the time. Anyways, so, like, Thistle and Emerald grumble a lot together about, like, what's going on, because Emerald is also, he has been delorded, but he ends up escaping with Thistle and Hemlock. And Hemlock and Azalea, who used to never get along, because Hemlock was always trying to like flirt with Azalea. They're now like fab friends, especially since Azalea is really missing Ambrosia, so they get to have nice girl talks together. Hemlock finds that she was really attracted to all the ladies of the court, and still is, but like she really wanted to be one of the ladies of the court, and Hemlock and Thistle totally have like huge crushes on each other, and like Thistle keeps looking at her and being like, why didn't you just tell me you were a lady? We could have gotten married before you were forced to marry Ambrosia. Wouldn't that have been great? And Hemlock is like, I couldn't have revealed that I was a lady because then I would have been killed. So there. And they're fighting, and like Thistle never admits that he totally is crushing on her, and we still haven't really worked out what's gonna happen between these two. I think they're gonna get together in the end, probably. They're sweet. They're just grumpy and mad at each other, and totally like they're mad at each other because they're kind of similar to like Iris and Nightshade, where they are totally into each other but like won't admit it to one another, and that's just a fun dynamic, I guess. So yeah, things are pretty bad in the Northern Kingdom. I can't think of what else there is to say exactly. Things really ramped up, and I also haven't really like RP'd this in a while. Obsidian now has like Ambrosia captured, and he's been working on making this dragon thing. Oh, I know, the Queen of the North. I haven't really gotten into some of the other stuff she's done. So the Northern Queen, Queen Umbra, is she's been expanding her territory further. What ends up happening with her is she sees like the vast land that's to the north of to the east of her, and that kingdom is the Bloodshore Kingdom, which is this huge human kingdom that has like conquered many different human lands, because there's like this evil king in charge of it. So she goes to the kingdom and she forces the king to marry her, and she does this because she kind of learns through what Wolf did with the prince that she can basically take all of his land by doing so. And because Obsidian has perfected divorce, that she plans to eventually divorce the king. The Bloodshore King, super evil guy. He was the guy that, for one, he's an old king who is the father of Cordelia. He killed Cordelia's mother, and Cordelia was put into an orphanage. She's not a fan of the Bloodshore King. He's remarried many different times, and like his most recent wife was supposed to be Princess Sarah, but Princess Sarah, she refused to marry him, and she was about to start a war between her kingdom and the Bloodshore Kingdom by refusing his proposal, because you know Sarah, that's what she'll do. But he does end up marrying the queen, partly because he doesn't really have any choice, because she's a powerful fairy queen, and she basically is like, I'm gonna destroy your land if you don't marry me. You're gonna. And also because like he hopes that if he becomes a fairy king of this huge kingdom, like, you know, that's something he wants too. And the queen also is like, if we end up liking each other, that's fine. Like, if you end up being the king of the north and you're a cool guy and we both can have evilness together, that's cool. I don't know what's really happening with him. We haven't really RP'd the two of them in a while. But yeah, he's a pretty bad guy, and he hopes to take over the kingdom for himself, or whatever, I guess, probably. He's been kind of ignored by the queen, especially right now, because she has Saffron captured, and she has not allowed Obsidian to touch Saffron, because that's her problem right now. Her and Saffron gonna sort out their things. Saffron's like, whatever, I'm not afraid of you, or whatever, I don't know. We haven't really got into it, super tense. Yeah, and that's basically it. I love this RP. I really need to get back to it, but we have a new RP. Probably going to talk about it next month. So next month, tomorrow, we're going to start by we're going to start our 25-day countdown to Christmas, because we celebrate Christmas, and that's cool if you don't. But like, for Christmas, we are going to put out one video every day up until the 25th, and we're also going to do our 30th video where we, talk about, RPs and such. We're not going to have extra videos on live stream days, so I'm going to do my Monday live stream as usual, and we're going to do our Saturday live stream as usual, but we're also going to have a bunch of fun new content for you to enjoy this month. I also have a giveaway planned soon, really soon, probably tomorrow. You know what? Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. And maybe I'll open up the Discord. I don't know. I could be lying. But we also have a cool thing we're planning. I think I've mentioned this a few times. I know I've mentioned this a few times. But once we hit 10K, we are going to plan a 24-hour live stream where we do 24 comic pages in those 24 hours. It's going to be crazy. Help us get to 1,000 subscribers. Help us get there. No, like, all of you unsubscribe right now. Haha. No, like, let's get to 10K, and then we can do this thing up and die a slow, painful death of overworking ourselves. Haha, not really. We'll pace ourselves. It's cool. Yeah. So thank you for watching. As usual, all the social media are in the description. I have an Instagram now because I got a new phone, so I post pictures of my dogs on Instagram. I should probably link it, so that's a thing. Yeah, I'm happy that I lost my blood and it wasn't super bad. Okay, goodbye.